So here we're going to take a look at the operating modes of this gauge, and I'm following along on the DG700 manual here, and there's a section that says Overview of Gauge Operating Modes, and there's 6 of them in total, so I'm going to show you just how to get those. So the first mode that we're on here is pressure, pressure, pressure on channel A, pressure on channel B. So right down here it says PR, PR for pressure, pressure. So as we hit mode, we go from pressure, pressure to pressure flow. This is pressure in pascals, flow in CFM. We press it one more time and we go pressure flow at 50 pascals. So we've got pressure in pascals, CFM at 50 pascals. This CFM at 50 pascals is an extrapolation mode that we'll show you later, where you don't have to achieve the exact test pressure. You can get an approximate test pressure, say 45 to 55 if you're trying to achieve 50, and this will mathematically extrapolate it to 50 pascals as if you were at 50 pascals. And this is one that is very, very commonly used with blower doors. The next mode, however, which is pressure flow at 25 pascals, is much more commonly used in ducts, and we won't be going into it in this section. The next one is pressure AH for air handler flow. That is not going to be gone into in this section either. And then pressure velocity, which would be using the gauge with a pitot tube, which doesn't really relate to blower doors either, so we're going to bypass that. That takes us back to pressure, pressure. In order for us to see these modes in action, we're going to turn on the fan and change our mode to flow once we get it going, and then take a look at what units are available in pressure flow. So we're going to turn the fan on. This is the pressure in the house. We're depressurizing the house, so it's a minus pressure. This is the flow pressure signal. We're trying to achieve 50 pascals, but let's say we don't quite achieve 50 pascals. Change the mode to pressure flow, and there's our flow in CFM, 386 CFM. That's the flow at 44 pascals. If we want to know what the flow is at 50 pascals, we change the mode to flow at 50. It's now extrapolated to 50. To 415 pascals. So even if the pressure drops, as we're showing here, you'll notice that the CFM is not dropping very much, because it keeps extrapolating back up to 50 and answering the question mathematically, what would the flow be if I was at 50? So even though we're only at 27, we're still extrapolating back up to 50. The fan is running so slow now that our flow pressure is a little bit low. So let's speed it back up again. Notice again, the flow is not changing very much, because again, it's extrapolating to 50 pascals. If we were to change back into the pressure flow mode, pressure flow, you'll notice that the flow is now going to change a lot when we change the speed. So we're going from about 290 CFM (450 CFM). So here, this is the flow at this pressure. Again, we drop the pressure down, and the flow drops. So let's take a look at the units that we can see this flow in. There's a variety of units that are available. So we press the units key. Right now we're in CFM. And we've got cubic meters per hour. Liters per second. Back to CFM. Let's change our mode one time. And let's look at what units are available here. So again, we've got CFM at 50, cubic meters per hour at 50, liters per second at 50, leakage area at 50 pascals in square inches, leakage area at 50 pascals in square centimeters, and back to CFM at 50. We're going to show the same units on this gauge, which performs in a very similar way, but slightly different in mode. We've also made changes in the setup menu to duplicate what we have over here as exactly as possible. So when we hit the mode key, and I'm just going to hold the exit down here temporarily, we've got pressure, CFM, pressure, EQLA in square inches, and air changes per hour, and then back to pressure. So let's see what that looks like when we turn the fan on. We have pressure developing in the house. We have our pressure of 56 pascals. Let's say we're trying to achieve 50, we're a little over. This is our fan pressure. When we press mode, it immediately converts that into CFM. As you can see, 340 CFM. We hit the mode key one more time. It goes to 42.5 square inches. We hit the mode key one more time. It goes to 20.8 air changes per hour. And with air changes per hour, we actually need to enter the volume in order to calculate that properly, which we do by hitting the enter key, and we put in whatever volume that we want in here. Enter. And we now have the proper air change rate displayed without using a computer. With this gauge, if we want to extrapolate to 50 pascals, all we really need to do is to press the at pressure key, and it says at 50 pascals. So this is the reading we would achieve if we had exactly 50 pascals up here. So that same at 50 can also apply to CFM. Here we're CFM at 50. So if we take the at 50 off, this is CFM. So 343 CFM at 55, 325 CFM, or a little less, at 50. Obviously, when we reduce the pressure in the house down, it's going to require less CFM. So this is mathematically extrapolating to the 50 pascal reading, or answering the question, how much flow would it take to achieve 50 pascals even though we're now at 55 pascals? Go through the mode one more time. Square inches at 50. Air changes at 50. Pressure. As far as the units are concerned, the units are handled in a slightly different way. The units are handled in the setup menu. We hit the setup menu, and we go to mode setup, enter, and inside the setup menu, we can change the units, which normally you change them once and leave them there. In this case, we've got flow in CFM. If we would like flow in liters per second, cubic meters per second, cubic meters per hour, it's off, back to CFM. So we can choose whatever units that we want. We can also choose whatever extrapolation pressure that we want also. For EQLA, is more commonly extrapolated to 10 pascals. If we wanted EQLA at 10 pascals, then we would merely change it here. Press enter, 10 for 10 pascals, enter, exit one more time. Now you'll notice that flow is extrapolated to 50. Leakage area, or EQLA, is now extrapolated to 10. So we have a complete optional way of displaying our units in whatever we desire.